I have a life now because of, I say because of Christ and cannabis. And so those are not,
mutually exclusive
things,
right.
Correct.
Right.
I have a life because
what
of Christ
every
and
good
cannabis.
Southern girl ought to say, Christ and cannabis.
That's it. And so it is my duty, but my privilege to serve the cannabis community.
Welcome to Season 5 of the Cannabis Truth Podcast. Your host is Honey Smith Walls, author of the new book, Healing Beyond High, Cannabis Truth, a gentle, practical guide for elders to learn cannabis fundamentals safely and effectively without overuse or overwhelm. In a world where the FDA has yet to stamp its approval on this ancient natural remedy, Honey Smith Walls bridges the gap between Western healthcare norms, uplifting benefits and relief through gentle cannabis plant therapies. Join this 21st century cannabis shaman, uniquely positioned to assess the green intentions of medical, farming, and business industries in cannabis and uncover fascinating historical, political, scientific, and spiritual facets of the plant.
Welcome to the Cannabis Truth Podcast. And please, everybody, I'd like for you to meet Livi McKay. And she was, as I just said, on the Cannabis Truth, on the Cannabis Public School as a lecturer. And it was so fascinating. I simply can't wait for you all to meet her and hear what she's got to say. This is all brand new technology, science, and just brilliant cannabis usage, don't you think?
I do. Thank you so much. Thank you for such a wonderful intro. And I also loved meeting you. And I'm excited to have this chat too.
I hope you'll go ahead and introduce yourself and explain to our audience what's happening in your world, Livi.
Of course. And as Honey said, I'm Livi McKay. I'm the founder and CEO of MyTEPI and the creator of the Discover Your Color platform. Discover Your Color is a new way to look at cannabis from a scientific perspective, but with the end consumer in mind and taking the priority. So founded in science, but prioritizing the consumer. And essentially what we do is we scientifically categorize, starting with the flower, using the COA data, and we're able to put that into 4 distinct categories that we have found do offer 4 different types of effects. These are generally thought of that indica, sativa, that range from energizing to sedating, and it's different for everyone, which is why we named it Discover Your Color. But we did color the groups to correlate with the top reported effects. So it does range from yellow, which is for the most part, for about 2/3 of the population. And that's roughly for each group. So yellow is the most energizing, then to green, then to purple, and then to blue, and then to purple being the most restful, sedating. And again, this can range for everyone. So yellow might make you sleepy, but if that's the effect you're looking for, then you can reliably go back to yellow because the chemistry underlying that color, underlying that category never changes. You just found the chemistry that works with your body for that desired effect. And so this is a completely new way of looking at cannabis as it is rooted in objectivity, but still has that room for the individual experience.
Oh, I'm so excited about this. And it's such glorious news because people need cannabis simplified. It's very complex because it's got hundreds of compounds, medicinal compounds in it. And so we've got to find a simpler way of helping the public understand this very complex plant. I do say all the time, if you can add butter and syrup to pancakes, you can do cannabis. but it's still
Exactly.
incredibly complex, and we have to figure out which compounds are best for us as individuals, because everybody's different. Like you said, some sativas might make you energetic and some sativas might not. And so it's not really about sativa and indica, it's about the various compounds underneath the plant, right?
Exactly. You nailed it.
This is really exciting for the public. And I just can't wait to start spreading this news because it's so very helpful. I'm up in Michigan where it's incredibly difficult to find any medicinal help. You can go to all the candy store dispensaries, around the corner, and there's jillions of them up here. But
Oh,
they
yes.
will not help you medicinally because they don't want the liability.
Correct.
Right.
And that's understandable.
Sure
It is
is.
understandable. And this, if I may, I'd like to say how we arrived here. And hopefully this can show that we have deep empathy for we do prioritize the consumer. We have an internal motto called Honor the Granny. And this came specifically from a real world. I watched this with my own two eyes. So I won't start all the way at the back of the beginning for this point. We'll probably get into it, but just for the purposes of staying with DYC and in the formation, this was around in 2020. Yes, 2020. And this is when I first got turned on to the idea that there was a big problem in the cannabis industry. At that time, I will say I was Wall Street working for a hedge fund, primarily in the cannabis space.
Oh, okay.
So yes, and specifically, they're very interested in the science. So at a hedge fund, I got the crash course of science in cannabis. Who knew? And I will say they're CB1 Capital. I really do have a lot of respect for those guys, especially for that lean, for that angle, for exposing me to that. They have a tagline that says it's not about getting high, it's about getting well. And they really do mean this. I can say that. And so that was my first, but there was still a problem, which was customers, the people using it did not know how to get to the right product.
Right.
And so that was just it seems like such a simple problem, but it was huge. It's huge endeavor. And so I did leave Wall Street, not really having any idea of how we were going to do this, but I did see part of the problem was this rec versus med bifurcation. I said, cannabis is wellness. And we need to start with what is the most objective, because this is all in subjectivity, legalities, verbiage. We need to start with the science.
Right.
So the most objective, measurable things that we can find, and then go from there. And so why we came to the Honor the Granny and also saw this to be such an issue was how I started this was going and just sitting in even hemp shops in states like Georgia, southern states, and then going eventually into more legal states. But I would sit in the hemp shops and I would see these little old ladies come in, so sweet in their southern proper way. And they would be very interested in cannabis. They'd be looking for it to sleep. And the gentleman behind the counter, as well-intentioned as he would be, he would say the names. This is Alaskan Thunder F, or this is that. And you just saw, I watched with this visceral reaction of these sweet, sweet, sweet ladies, just kind of aghast, and left the store without buying anything. And I thought, no, this is a major gap. We are just starting with the names alone. People are not getting the medicine they need. People are not getting the wellness they need, even when they are seeking it. And so that's how this all began, and Honor the Granny. And we're like, we need to simplify this. It needs to be rooted in science. It needs to be easy enough for your grandmother to understand it. And that was the real ethos of our origins and how this whole thing came about.
You have perfectly described how I teach people to vet a company. You have. Because it's about caring about the patient. And you saw it spot on. This has been my soapbox for years now. I'm 70, but I've been doing this for a few years, trying to help old farts, pardon the expression, understand how to get the right cannabis, the right cannabinoids, the right terpenes. And it's so much science. Your simplification is going to move everything around. and help so many people, and hopefully that fast. Hopefully. Oh, by the way, I just want to tell you that I can only snap my fingers this morning because of cannabinoids and terpenes.
I love it.
I've got really hideous
arthritis
and and neuropathy in my fingers.
Oh.
I can make a fist this morning because of cannabis and terpenes.
And that's what we're talking about.
Really, really amazing. And
exactly.
So I've been on high blood pressure meds for the past got 5 of them in here. Past 40 years. And I was just able to get off of blood pressure meds because I'm now calming my body down. I've learned to stop listening to horrific news about rape of women and murder and all of that. I don't listen to that anymore. Don't watch TV that has rape and murder of women on it. Don't put my mind through that kind of turmoil so that it wells up all these emotions because, God, our emotions are attached to our thoughts and energy and motion. And so
and our health and
all of that, if we're constantly, our mind is in turmoil and our heart is in angst, it creates illness.
Yes.
And so we have to learn how to discipline ourselves to avoid that sort of stuff as elders. And I think a lot of elders kind of catch on and do too. A lot of us. I see a lot more people coming into the cannabis world if they can. It's so hard for them to trust. They don't know what to believe anymore.
Again, it's completely understandable, and I'm so happy to hear that you've been able to get off of your blood pressure medication. You've also been able to see that it is a holistic experience. I tell people cannabis is it's not a one-trick pony. It's not going to solve all of the problems, but it will. It's almost like a gateway to show you how you can address all of these different issues while also helping you address these issues. And I speak from, as you know, from very personal experience and also from very severe medical conditions that have been alleviated by cannabis.
Can you tell us about that, honey?
Of course. And so it probably does bear saying that I grew up in Alabama. So for anyone that can detect an accent, and y'all will hear y'all from time to time, but I did grow up in Alabama, and my mother was an attorney, specifically she was an ADA and specified in the DEA in drug cases. So she prosecuted drug cases. My father was a cardiologist. And I grew up in a very Christian conservative home. And so cannabis was absolutely a no-go, absolutely the devil's lettuce. And I was a very straight-laced student. My nickname was St. Francis. The idea of me drinking a beer, smoking anything, was unfathomable as me as a high schooler. And then I get to college, and as many people do when they go to college, they start opening up. And I won't say that I walked away from faith or anything of that nature. I still very deeply spiritual and Christian person, but I did start to see people it was just a lack of exposure, honestly. I started to meet people that used cannabis, and I was like, oh, you're not a degenerate. You actually can function, I saw everything that broke what my perceptions and misconceptions were of people who used cannabis. And that started very early. And then, of course, I started using it because I felt that it helped with anxiety, helped me eat, those types of things, but still was very, very resistant to saying this is medicine until I was in 2011, I was in an F5 tornado that ripped through Tuscaloosa. Many of you might remember that. It was a very big event. Several hundred people died, and it was, and I lost my apartment building was hit. My car was totaled. And I had already been having a tough time 2 days prior, I'd already been having a rough month with a death of a friend, boyfriend breakup, so for my little 20-year-old brain, it was just too much to handle. And then the tornado hit. And so about it's a little bit blurry, but I would say probably 4 to 6 weeks later, I was at a job and I started having grand mal seizures. And so the grand mal seizures, they put me on Keppra. They started to look at what was wrong. I was diagnosed with severe PTSD from the tornado. And then they said that I was having what they could only find were stress-induced grand mal seizures. And they were not what's known as these, I think they're called psychokinetic, where they're basically kind of false seizures. No, these were actually found to be real grand mals, non-epileptic, but basically such trauma-induced that it resulted in. So I really know the power. Yes, I really know the power of them. Thing. I haven't. This was kind of an out of the box.
Yeah.
Explanation, because they couldn't really find why the seizures were continuing to increase, and they were increasing in frequency and severity. And so what ended up, so then I lost my job because I kept having seizures at the job, which isn't, I understood. I was hired back, later, yeah. But they're like, you need to take care of yourself. Right. And that was understood. But again, I'm in Southern Alabama in 2011 and nothing is working. And so this lady who, I am a horse girl. I grew up riding horses. So yes, being on a farm for me is very therapeutic, very, very home. That's where I go to get my mind right. And so a woman with a farm who had a degree in master's in psychology, and yes, was a lady of the hippie era. And so she said, come on in, let's get you eating right. Let's get you work, a barn routine. Cause any horse girl will tell you the barn routine of cleaning stalls, feeding, turning the horses in and out is very, very therapeutic. It's not considered something, we don't dread it. We actually
like
really
gardening.
Enjoy.
Right.
Exactly.
It's love.
Exactly.
Right.
You love doing it.
Yes.
So she's like, let's get you doing this. Let's get you, and she made sure that I started eating organically, eating well. I dropped down to 78 pounds.
Oh.
I was absolutely emaciated. And so she just said, and smoke as much pot as you need to. and she did. And I ended up having only one seizure at her place. I lived there for about 4 years, but then I started seeing that the seizure started to dissipate and that the cannabis was really helping me to process the PTSD. My therapist was in favor of me using it, even though this was still so against the grain, against the norm. No one else was very happy with this idea, sure. Right? Yeah. But it did end up helping, and I went 4 years seizure free, and which was incredible. And I was able to go back to school, get my degree, and that's when I started pursuing finance. And then, but it doesn't stop there. It's right around 24, I started suffering from hemorrhagic ovarian cysts.
Oh my gosh.
And started to have internal bleeding and sorts. And that ended up resulting in over 17 months. I was hospitalized 15 times with 5 major operations and the removal of all non-vital organs except my spleen. I have my spleen. But I did lose my ability to have children. I did have a radical hysterectomy and everything else taken out. And so I also have, as a result of that, I have what's known as adhesions, abdominal adhesions.
Yes.
So they're very, very painful. And that's a chronic pain I have to deal with, as well as hormonal imbalance. So at 26, I was basically declared an invalid. I retired from my job at Morgan Stanley, resigned from my job at Morgan Stanley. They said, your life is essentially over. And I was prescribed to about 90 Percocets, 10 milligrams a month, so 3 a day, on top of benzodiazepines. I mean, they had
3 Percocets a day?
And that was when I wasn't on Dilaudid. That was because I would be on 2 to 4 milligrams of Dilaudid a day, up to 8 milligrams of Dilaudid a day. I was just incredibly over medicated.
Oh, of course.
But I had plenty of doctors. I had a full team of doctors in Western Med, and they were trying their best, but the seizures returned. Everything kind of came crashing down. And then basically they're like, but something snapped in me. Honestly, something happened. I do believe it was a come to Jesus moment where it's like, if you keep down this path, you're going to be dead, and you're going to be dead by 30. And if you don't, you have a life to live, keep going. And then that is when I met my now husband, and he met me when I was very, very sick. But he said, "You're not sick." He actually, and this was actually after someone told him very cruelly, "She will be dead soon. Cut her off." Because I was, yes, it was. And he said, and he looked at me and he said, no, this is not happening. And so he said, "You're not sick. You're on a ton of pills. You're not eating well." Kind of the same kind of pattern had started to emerge. And he said, "You're not eating well, but you are an athlete. I do ride horses and all of that." So he said, "So let's get you back and let's get let's get you off." And he actually didn't like cannabis. He was very anti-cannabis at the time, but was very pro-plant. And then he saw how well I worked with cannabis, and he was like, "You know what, do it. That's fine." Now he is my co-founder in the company with me and has done all of our science. And it's a complete 180 turnaround.
This happy ending. That's good. That's so good.
And so just to sum it up, from being an invalid, retired, and so forth, fast forward just 4 years after that, I was nationally ranked athlete in the sport of 3-day eventing, which is essentially like the triathlon.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I had made it back to not just finance, but I ended up working for some incredible people on Wall Street, some very notable names, getting some incredible mentorship for some incredible notable names, got to work with some congressmen and women on actually trying to get some bills written on cannabis reform. So my life just went, turned. I mean, I have a life now because of Christ and cannabis. And so those are not
mutually exclusive
things.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
I have a life because
what
of Christ
every
and
good
cannabis.
Southern girl ought to say: Christ and cannabis.
That's it. And so I do find that it is my duty, but my privilege to serve the cannabis community, to serve the people. And again, I make no bones about this. My priority is the consumer, but we prioritize the consumer, and we give this to the operators. We give this system to the operators. What we found that the operators actually make more money when they put the consumers first, because they're able to track what they like. They're able to stock what they have a demand. So they're able to meet the consumer where they are. They're not having to spend as much time at the counter. They're able to direct them to exactly what they need. The colors are consistent and reliable, unlike brands, sativa, indica, that type of thing. It's a reliable thing. So they come back to the same dispensary waiting on that color system. So
loyalty is involved in that. Yeah, I see it.
Exactly. And so we look at this system as a new standard, but a standard that is not an oppressive. It's a standard that lifts everyone up. It is a standard that lifts up the entire industry. And that's why our mission statement is that we care for the people, we respect the plant, and we validate the industry. And so everything we do has to match those 3 pillars. It has to respect the plant, it has to be caring of the people, and it has to validate the industry. If any one of those marks fail, we do not go forward. It does not go into our platform. It is discarded.
God, that's so thrilling to hear. It really is the basis of a cannabis company, right then and there.
Well, hello, I'm Dr. Philip Blair, and I want to introduce you to Honey Smith Walls. And she's a real strong advocate and educator about cannabis. And she recently had an experience with beta-caryophyllene.
And all that day, I had just one. I just had this silly grin all over my face. Suddenly, colors came back to me. I'm a musician and a creative, and colors are very important to me. They give me such joy, and I didn't realize how they had muted and how colors had just turned uninteresting.
Oh boy.
Eye-catching to me. And suddenly, bam, I'm seeing greens and blues and reds and oranges and everything in between. And it was just so uplifting to me. It hello, it made me grateful. Oh,
let me back up just a little bit.
Yes.
I met Dr. Jean Talleyrand at
Yes.
Cannabis Public School, which is where I met you too. And I just interviewed him on my show last week, and so his episode is running now. And I can't wait. We're going to put this one right next to it. I hope.
Fantastic.
Yes. I can't wait to find out how you became involved with Dr. Talleyrand and what's going on there.
Absolutely. And in we affectionately know him as Dr. T.
Yeah.
That's what the team calls
That's
him.
what we
And
call
yes,
it too.
Exactly. But yes, Dr. Jean Talleyrand is an absolute saint of the industry, if there ever was one. Dr. T has been in the industry since out of his residency. He's a medical doctor, Ivy League educated medical doctor, has been seeing patients since his residency in 1998. Has founded Medican, which has seen over 500,000 cannabis patients since its foundation in 2004. He risked his career to give a little girl CBD medication for her seizures back, I believe that was 2007, 2009. So he has been on the fighting forefront, rejecting what can be the luxury life of a doctor in the pursuit of caring for the patients and truth. And so what we found was my husband and I is, yes, we started this out, but we are both Wall Street veterans, passionate about the plant, but we are not scientists.
Gotcha.
We do not make any claims otherwise.
Right.
We just have a passion for understanding and basing things in science.
Right.
And so when we developed an app that was great in concept, but it did struggle with science. It was not science. It was more hypothetical than sound off of real world data.
Gotcha.
But that app, we presented it at Benzinga, at the Benzinga conference, and we were someone came by and saw us. I think that was Kellen Finney of the Dime podcast, and he knew Dr. Talleyrand and his then partner at the time, and said, "Hey, you've got to know these people. They really need to." It was Dr. John Abrams said, "You've really got to get to know these people. They're looking at the plant." And so, long story short, Dr. Talleyrand decided that he was going to join us and help us to create not just the science, because he did have the science. He had the science of how to categorize the plant scientifically. He had the research, he had the real world data, and the ongoing live data through his dosing project to collect even more. He is, like I said, a heart of gold and a true saint of the industry. Mm-hmm. But we needed to make it something that could be applied, something that could be adopted by the industry. And so that's when my husband and I took our business experience and business development experience and knowledge of the industry and regulatory frameworks, and developed a system that can be applied in both cannabis and actually in the hemp market as well, defining this all as the same plant, same consumer, defined again by its scientific chemistry, by these clusterings, and starting with that really rock solid foundation. We do believe that this is, and with again, in conjunction with a real world application that is our app and Discover Your Color, combined with this 25 years of research that Dr. T brings, it's the first solution of its kind. Because I'm shamelessly talking it up because I'm obviously very excited about what we bring to the table, because the industry so far, and this isn't wrong, it's just something that needs to be modified, which is, the entire industry mantra is educate the consumer, educate the consumer. We need to educate the consumer.
Yes, we do.
And I do believe that we need to educate the consumer, but there's another reality that we often overlook in the industry, and that there is a significant portion of the consumer base that doesn't simply want to be educated.
Oh, you are so right about that. I'm so glad you called that out. They want to stay ignorant. What is that?
So I try to look at it with empathy. They may not have the time, the interest. That is not actually my concern of their motivation. I can think about, are they less entitled to getting the right product as someone who is educated?
Bless you.
And I
for
don't
that.
think so.
You're right.
I don't think so. I think that the uneducated and the educated should have the exact same access to getting the same medicine,
Exactly.
regardless of your passion for the plant. And so we are kind of changing that on its head a little bit. So we're saying the industry needs more education. The consumers need more solutions.
Ooh.
And that's what we're trying to bring.
Girl, that is so juicy. I love that. Yes, you're right. The industry needs more education. And the customer, yes, the consumer, the patient needs more solutions. That is a beautiful mantra. I'm going to spill that all over the place. Tell me, darling, how are you getting this info into the dispensaries, and what can I do to help you?
Thank you.
I want to take the brochures to all of these candy stores around here and make them accept.
And we can. So we are trying to make this as easy as possible to adopt. Okay. So we have a free service. Yes, we have premium services that there's more involved, but we do have a free service that allows you to, if you have COAs with terpene testing, that's all that you need.
And let me stop you right there. COAs, everybody, I know my audience knows this, but a COA is just a lab test. It's called a certificate of analysis. So go ahead, honey. I'm sorry.
That is correct. And so you just need to have your COAs with a terpene testing. Yes. And you can log on, you can sign up for our app. We log you into it. And then from there, you're able to upload your entire inventory of COAs, so your flower inventory. We will be doing concentrates and vapes in the fall, and then moving on to edibles later on. But we do flower for now, and that's including pre-rolls. And so what you upload your COAs, and then you immediately, in less than 3 minutes, you get a full report of your inventory with the color coding attached to each SKU, so attached to each COA. And so that way you can see right then and there what your inventory variety looks like. And what's very interesting from that snapshot is you see most dispensaries are actually leaning towards two specific colors, which are purples and blues. So that more indica, that more sedating. But what we have found is that the dispensaries who go more, who have a more even balance, so they have an actual pretty even display of yellows, greens, blues, and purples, they sell more product. And it's very logical why. You're reaching a wider audience base. You're reaching a wider consumer base, and you're offering something reliable to come back to.
Yes.
So this is why we've seen. So it's able to see, oh, this is what my inventory is. Another feature of this is you're actually able to see on the app who in your system who brands and dispensaries, who is also on DYC. So if you see that your inventory is leaning towards purples and blues, you can go see if there is a brand in your area that specializes in greens and yellows, and start facilitating that conversation to more even out your inventory. And all of that is free. All of that is completely free for the operators, because we don't want this to be something that is a barrier to entry, we want everyone to be able to access and adopt the color system, because it will do better for you. There's more services that we provide a full stack service as far as, and that's more of our premium service, where we integrate with your POS system. We have a bud tender training session. We have a buyer training session. If you have nurses or practitioners, we also have a nurses and practitioners session. So we are able to come in. We're even able to offer marketing and graphic design. So if you want to incorporate colors into your store or into your brands, which we have had both do, we have an in-house graphic designer that takes that on. So you don't have to pay your graphic designer to do anything. We do all of that for you. So we are doing as much heavy lifting as possible. All we need from the industry is a few brave people, a few brave operators, and we're finding them. They're out there.
Yes.
That are saying, okay, the old way hasn't really been working. It worked enough for now. Indica sativa worked enough for now. And trying to tell everyone about entourage effect, trying to tell everyone about terpenes, we get it, 1 out of 10 times. You talk to the bud tenders, they're so demoralized because they can't get people to care. And so this is the way of going, hey, you don't have to anymore. You don't have to get them to care if they don't want to. If they want to, we've got all the educational resource you could possibly want. But if they're just trying to look for a product to help them sleep, or if they're trying to help them look for a product for less pain, it's just a matter of finding their color.
It's just
4 different categories. That's it. Very simple, not daunting. Come back, let's start you. Are you trying to find something in the mornings? All right, you might want to try in your yellows and greens. Let's start there. If that doesn't work for you, let's work down the spectrum. Once we find the color that works for you, you're in. Just reply back to that color.
Okay, I'm not quite connecting the dots in one particular place, so maybe you can help me. I'm sure you can. How does the dispensary have to color code all of its products now?
So that's a very, very good question. This is where it kind of comes into a little bit more of the service that we have. So what we have seen, what one dispensary did, this is Florida Dispensary, and shout out to Florida Dispensary in San Francisco. If any of y'all are out there, go check them out. What Floor did is they started out with stickers. This actually originally just started out with stickers. Now they just print out on their product placard.
Label.
Like the label, the product label that displays the product in the store.
Right.
They just have a little circle dot that has our hex number, so that way it's no cost, no labor. They've just added it into the label and it's right there. Wow. We do the same with brands. So brands will send us their packaging and their labels, and and they basically tell us where on the real estate we can play. Our graphic designer fits in where we can put the color in. And we do write out that color, so that way colorblind people can see, even if they can see the word blue, yellow, that kind of thing. And so that will physically go on the brand packaging. So again, no cost. It's just put right into the brand. And we're still working on ways to more streamline that and make it more efficient. But right now, these are the preliminary ways. We've also, but again, this is something that we're exploring, and we're open to new layouts, new ideas, and we are working with other dispensaries on possible ways that we can display this to make the most sense to customers for that inventory optimization. When you come in, a customer knows exactly or gets a feel of what they're looking for, or can at least ask the question,
right,
what do the colors mean? And that ends up with a very inviting conversation.
Yes, it does. I don't know, honey, how you are not going to be a huge corporate building somewhere, in Alabama or New York or San Francisco or wherever, because this is, all across the country, everybody's going to be sending you product and stuff. Are they not?
That is certainly our aim and our goal. Is I wouldn't say to have the building, but if that serves the purpose, that serves it. But it is our goal to have this adopted widespread.
Right.
What we do, and we firmly believe this, that it takes one big player. Right now, we do have mostly small guys, and I love our small guys. Our small guys are what feed the best people. Look, I am hail to the small batch. Yeah. Trust me on that. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
But I also look at a state like New Jersey that doesn't have that option. Those consumers should not be disadvantaged just because they don't have access to the brilliant outdoor grown Mendocino, Humboldt County, so in California or even in Michigan, like what you're talking about. If you don't have some places, Michigan's got a little bit more of a robust market, but I'm thinking like New Jersey is pretty heavily dominated by corporate cannabis. And
is it?
Again, yes, pretty, yeah, because they've got very limited licenses.
I thought also, pardon me for interrupting, I thought also that New Jersey requires a pharmacist doctor, a PharmD, to be in their dispensaries or to be associated with their dispensaries. Is that wrong?
That is Pennsylvania in their medical program. I don't believe that's true for New Jersey's rec, now that they've gone rec. Pennsylvania hasn't gone medical, it hasn't gone rec yet. They're still in the medical category.
Yeah.
And they do require a pharmacist. But I don't think New Jersey does.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah.
Because it would be so helpful for the elders and so comforting.
Would be. Yes. And oh my gosh, yes. And so I can't give it away just yet, but we have some ideas. We have some ideas on how to even solve that problem, because we understand that for walking into it, I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had where people are telling me that walking into a dispensary is weird and it's awkward and it doesn't matter which one you go into. It doesn't matter if it's legal or not. It doesn't matter. You just feel weird. And so we're cognizant of that, because that is going to affect your purchasing decisions. That's going to affect how you shop. That's going to, I can speak from experience that I have walked in, felt awkward, have some social anxiety, and been like, just give me the highest THC you got, knowing full well that THC is not what matters. Not what matters, but
not what you needed.
Out.
But you were under stress and pressure in that damn candy store, and I get it, honey. I have gone there too many times and walked out with something I didn't want or go in there for, because I felt, and I had a full-fledged panic attack in one of them not too very long ago, because the music was so loud and pounding, and they shouted at me, and they seemed aggressive, and they seemed in a hurry, and I was like, and I couldn't even read through their scrolling menu of what, and of course it wouldn't matter anyway because of the stupid names that mean nothing.
Exactly. This is it. This is a universal problem despite your age. I do think that it absolutely affects the elderly. Absolutely. Yeah. But I ran an experiment on this with one of my youngest employees. He just turned 22. And I took him to I won't name it because it did not go well, but I took him to one of the corporate MSOs, and he walked and we walked and we bought something, and this was in Connecticut. We walked out and I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "That was a weird vibe between a doctor's office and a disco club, and I didn't like it."
That's it.
That was weird.
He totally called it. Between a doctor's office and a disco. It's true. That's what it feels like.
He goes, because you've got the sterile coldness of a doctor's office, but then you've got this superficial, like this loud superficiality of the disco club. And so then we went to a smaller independent operator that you walk in and it's like spa music. They've got terpenes listed everywhere. They've got education everywhere. We got product. We walked out and I said, "Okay, what do you think?" And he goes, "Oh, I thought I wanted to hang out in there." He goes, "I actually really enjoyed it. It was very relaxing." So this matters. It matters. And this, like I said, this is a 22-year-old boy who is as extroverted, party-going, like fraternity guy that you could get. And he didn't want to feel like he was going into a disco. Like a disco club, like a disco.
I'm really amazed and so thrilled that you told me that, because I thought it was just age, just being older,
It's true.
It's not.
I believe, truly what I believe is that this is such a nascent industry.
Yep.
That mistakes were made. And in those mistakes, certain things kind of got ran with that shouldn't necessarily have gotten run with.
Yep.
And so I don't think that these mistakes are a life sentence. I don't think that they are descriptive of the future of the industry. I wouldn't be here if I did.
Yeah.
We are again, I believe, I will say this until I'm blue in the face, cannabis is a wellness industry.
Yes.
And I think walks are wellness. I think riding my horse is wellness. Many people classify that as recreation. I promise you, I'm a healthier, more rounded person when I am doing those things. I know what vice is.
Right.
And anything can be used as a vice if you're using it as escapism. But what I always say with cannabis is good luck. Good luck escaping from your problems, because what do we all know about cannabis? It makes you think.
It sure
gets
does.
you paranoid. Good luck escaping your problems. It doesn't just go, if you've got, it makes you actually see. This is why I think it's such a magical, and I want to be very, very hesitant when I say that word, because we've got enough of that. I think this is I actually want to say this. I think this is an incredibly spiritual plant as well as a medicinal plant. And I think that is actually what is missing in medicine is this spiritual aspect of wellness, that you can think that you're healthy. And what I mean by this is when I was in, so one of my stints in the hospital, I've had 2 separate month-long stints, but one in particular was particularly severe, and I was in sepsis. My body went into sepsis. My physician walked in and said, "I did not think that you were going to make it through the night." I was being fed through the vein, and because my whole systems have shut down, my veins had collapsed.
Really?
I could not intake medicine, but I do remember them also saying to me, this was I was married at the time. This was my then husband, former husband. He said, he actually was a physician, and he did tell me, he said, in all of my years of practicing medicine, the ones who believe they're going to make it usually do, and the ones that give up don't. So this shows a strong spiritual belief, whatever it is, but it is an ephemeral, intangible, but emotion, thought-based aspect of medicine that medical doctors will attest to time and time again, that those that believe they're going to make it most of the time do, and those that believe they won't don't. And so I think that cannabis has this way of opening our minds, of making us aware of issues and problems that we can tackle in our lives. And that's why I say I think it's a very spiritual element to it. So when we classify this as a vice, when we say that this, and it's very important that when it comes from the government, that it's classified as a vice, because that means then it's taxed as a vice. That means that it can be marketed as a vice. And then what is our euphemism for marketing vice? We're marketing lifestyle.
What does vice mean to our government? What does that mean?
So what vice means to our government is something that you want to, an activity that you want to discourage the use of, or that you want to, absolutely. That's why you have a vice tax on cigarettes. You have a vice tax on alcohol. It was also known as like a euphemism of a sin tax. And also high taxes.
I know that one.
Yeah. High taxes on gambling, vice. So anything that the government deems that should be discouraged, they will tax. That's the philosophy. And so what I'm saying is, if we are wanting to break the stigma of cannabis not to be used, or that it should only be used once every now and then when you want to relax, but if you use it daily, then you've got a problem, because that's what we say about alcohol. If you're using alcohol daily to relax, because of how it physiologically acts with the body, and it is a deteriorant, and it is an intoxicant that is deteriorating your body. Your body recognizes this as a poison, which is why you get cirrhosis of the liver and so forth. So if you're using alcohol on a daily basis, you're most likely going to be labeled as an alcoholic that has a problem. And that's why we're going to tax it, so that we can try to deter you from doing it. Here's what's very interesting about cannabis. If you use cannabis daily, according to the own government, according to the NIH, this was a study done, I believe, in 2013. 2016. You are 3 times more likely, if you're using cannabis, you are 3 times more likely to be treating an underlying health condition than not. So what this, again, is a complete different juxtaposition to those that the government classifies as vice. And so what I think that the cannabis, and I understand when a lot of people say this was born out of I don't need a problem to use cannabis.
Oh.
Life is a problem, buddy. I don't know if you've ever had life happen to you, but life tends to be lots of problems, all right? And so just by saying, okay.
Yeah, you go ahead and be tough. I'm going to use some cannabis.
Right. Like, I'm like, if you're using cannabis at the end of the night to relax because you are overly stressed out, that's wellness. If you are using cannabis to help you sleep because you have insomnia, that is wellness. If you're using cannabis to help
your tummy, IBS,
social,
all of it,
IBS,
anxiety.
Right. If it helps your social anxiety to where you're actually able to go and communicate with the people. I'm a very weird person. So it's very hard for me to be my total self around people. But I found that cannabis, kind of unlike alcohol, which drops inhibitions and kind of makes you this slop of a person.
Yeah.
It was like cannabis helped me embrace a little bit of my weirdness and who I was, and not be afraid to talk to people and not be afraid to be myself.
Right.
And that is healthy, because having relationships is healthy. and wellness. I have some of the best people in my life because of cannabis. And
Me
so
too.
I'm saying
Me
all
too.
of this is wellness.
Yes.
Why are we saying that we need less of it? And so I think that's why I say that
Sorry.
the industry needs more education.
Yeah.
Because the consumers, when you poll them and you ask them, they say, I'm improving my life. Most of them, 90% say they're using it for wellness. You get some kids usually that are like, I want to just get as messed up as possible. And it's like, okay, we just need to let you cook a little bit more, and then we'll figure out the problem that you're actually trying to solve.
Girl, when I was in high school, we would look forward to Friday night so we could go out and get drunk. And we would use those words. We're getting drunk on Friday. Woohoo! Come on, big party out in the boondocks. We wanted to go get drunk. What is that? And it's, at 15 and 16 and 17 and 18.
Exactly.
And so, no, we need to teach our kids better.
Yes. And also, if we have an industry that is geared towards getting high, like getting as high as possible, and that's how you're marketing it, that's how you're selling it, that's the graphics that you're using.
Oh.
And
I'm sorry, I can't talk to a patient about a product that's wrapped in pink Mylar with the title Pink Pussy on it. I can't do it.
You can't tell them to go and get cheetah piss.
Yeah.
Like you just can't. And so, but what if that chemistry in that plant doesn't respect the plant, doesn't care for the people, doesn't validate the industry?
Exactly.
But at the same time, so the empathizing side is going, wow, but what if that plant is what if the chemistry of cheetah piss is exactly what your 88-year-old
grandmother needs?
And so that's why I'm saying industry, y'all need education.
Right.
Y'all need to grow up.
Right.
Y'all need to mature.
Yes.
Y'all need to see what a privilege and a responsibility you have by being the steward of this plant, by ushering in its legality, by ushering in the regulations around it, because newsflash, regulators do not write the regulations, lobbyists do. And who pays the lobbyists? That's who writes the legislation. So we are sitting around and saying the government's going to take care. No, that's not how Washington, D.C. works. It is the industry that tells the regulators, and it is usually the industry members with the biggest money or the biggest influence. And what I say is that the people of this industry have the biggest influence, because there are tens of millions of Americans that are using cannabis, and give them something to rally behind, because they know why they're using it. They know that it's improving their life. They know that it's making them well. They know that it's helping them. They just need an industry member that will stand up and go, yeah, you're right. You are doing that. And then you have that power of tens of millions of people, and you say, regulate it for them. You regulate the industry for them. And that does have to come with some type of solution. And that is a lot of why we built in offering that solution, because we knew that words alone, plans alone, talking, being another person with a lot of opinions was not going to get it done. We had to come to the table and say, here's what we've got. What do you think? Y'all, let's make it better. What do you think? Let's improve it. We're open. But this is the solution that we've got. No one else is putting one forward.
Is that right? And another question, are there cannabis doctor lobbyists? Please say yes.
Yes.
You don't sound very...
Yes, but are they
the right...
treating patients?
Oh.
Are they actually treating patients?
Ding,
Mostly, they have treated patients in the past, but they've taken on a new type of career.
I see.
Which tends to separate them from what's really happening on the ground.
So we still don't have the right lobbyists.
We don't have the right lobbyists. We haven't, frankly, I'll just put it like it is.
Please do.
We haven't had the right operators with enough money, with the right to pay the lobbyists. And I have spoken to I've spoken to lawyers who've actually beaten the DEA, gone up, beaten the DEA. I've spoken to the lawyer who was the one that got the HHS recommendation unredacted, because they first released it redacted. So I spoke to that lawyer that got it unredacted. Yes, it was ridiculous. Because you can all transparency, truth is the best disinfectant, right? And so when you shine a light on things, it limits your moves if you don't like operating in the light. So I can't assign their motivations, but I can just say that is the typical profile of why you would want to hide something, of the person that likes to hide something. Yeah. And so what I do believe that we need is we do need a more cohesive approach that I don't think is just the independent guys, just the independent guys over here and the corporate guys over there. I think that we need some unity in the industry, because as long as the industry is not unified, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what lobbyists we pay, because there will be other lobbyists paying others. You've got to have some cohesion and unity in the industry, and we've got to stop the infighting. And so, again, it will not happen overnight. No, it will not happen overnight. But I do believe that with the right roads, think about trade. Think about like the history of trade. It's developed by roads. Yes, just avenues, pipelines that allowed people with not necessarily the same values or the same beliefs or the same religions or what have you, cultures or any of that, but to trade what was good. And that is, if you want to say my dream for the industry, if I can call it that, if I can be so bold, is that 10 years from now, we have the highways and the pipelines of trade that actually allow large operators, because they do something right. They know how to brand. They actually do know how to brand things. They do know how to they do know how to do things at scale. It's already in large place. Distributions. They know, and they're already here. They're not going away. Right. So, and then you've got your small guys. They actually know how to grow the plant. They actually know the really, really good plant. And there are a few very select, but there are one or two large operators that do a good job growing the plant. And I do have to give credit where credit is due. Good. I try to be as impartial as possible. Again, putting the consumer first. And so my dream would be, why aren't we having small batch, just a series of small batch and being sold by big guys, because the big guys get the advertising dollars. They get the eyeballs, unfortunately, but they're selling terrible product. Yes. And so let's get good product in their store for them to sell. You make money, they make money, consumers get the best product. We have to kind of drop our egos a little bit on all sides, right? Yeah. Like the corporate guys have got to see, hey, your product subpar. The little guys have got to see, hey, you got to get at scale, or else subpar product is what's going to be at scale. So how can we make these two worlds coexist? And I do believe they can. And I'm not saying it's a certainty. I'm not saying that that's how it's going to play out, but it's what we're fighting for. It's the future that we're fighting for, and that we're trying to help carve out in the best way that we can see. But we are open to suggestions. We want partners. We want people aligned with this goal to help make it happen, because we think it's a worthy, noble goal where everybody wins, which to me seems like the most noble of goals.
It is, honey. It truly is. And I want to help you all that I can, because I see it for what it is too. And I just think you're remarkable, darling. Really, I do. Look at you. Look what you've overcome, what you've survived, what you've surmised, what you've gleaned from living the life that you have already, and how you've managed to put it together and come up to where you are. Good show, honey. Really, good show. Damn strong determination to be a woman on this planet.
Thank you.
Really.
And
I'm proud of you, Livy. You're doing it well on this planet, even though you've had to suffer a lot. you're still doing it well, and you're a testimony to all women who suffer and can come through it in some way or another. And so, God love you. This is an amazing project, and I really do want to help you. Tell us, how can we get in touch with you? What's the best avenue? And is there a website that we can go to look up more and become involved?
Absolutely. And this will be driven by consumers. So all you consumers and patients out there, tell all of your dispensaries, your brands, to go to discoveryourcolor.co, and they can sign up, and we will take it from there. That's all we need. And so you can reach me at Livi at MyTEPI. That's MyTEPI.com. Another place is X, formerly Twitter. I happen to be a big loudmouth on there, but I'm talking quite a bit about cannabis, actually almost exclusively about cannabis. And I do use that as kind of a journal to tweet my thoughts on the industry. So, and I'm very responsive to DMs and stuff. So the email and Twitter is probably the best way to
Let me
reach
ask
out
you
to me.
something about Twitter, honey. Do you have any issues? Do they shut you down talking about cannabis at all?
So actually, since Elon Musk bought Twitter, they have become outwardly very cannabis friendly, to where they're the only social media platform that allows direct advertising of actual cannabis products. They're the only one. And so I not only not have a problem, I have by far the largest traction. And what I've been very grateful to it is there are subsects on Twitter. It's known like financial Twitter, which is called FinTwit. And that's where I used to reside. So I used to have a lot of financial Twitter people that are quite notably some of the biggest names in finance, and they're out there and you can talk to them. That's what the original intent was. And so now there's Cannabis FinTwit Twitter. And so there is a particular group of community, and they're largely investors and a lot of the CEOs and large just C-suite officers of a lot of these large operations, like Curaleaf, like TerraSyn, TruLeaf. They're all on Twitter, honestly. And I will say I've been able to interact with them. Like I said, been a little bit of a loudmouth, gotten into a couple of arguments. But at the same
Sweet
time,
little old you, I can't imagine.
me.
Girl, bless their hearts.
Exactly. That's when they know I'm mad. Bless your
Yeah,
heart.
right?
But no, it's been very good. It's been very good. And so join the conversation, honestly, on it's becoming more and more, it's real. And that's what I enjoy about it. It's a very real conversation, real community.
I was afraid to go on it because I lost 5,000 people on Facebook, and I was just afraid to go on it. So, but I'll look now. Thank you for the tip, and I'll look for you. And gosh, you have really changed my thoughts around about what goes on in the background with big corporate and cannabis. And I'm so grateful to have a broader view now of, what it takes to get the show on the road, if you will, from the big corporate standpoint. And none of it's easy. None of it is easy. Tell me again. Let's see. Where did MyTEPI come from? That was it.
So MyTEPI that's the name of the company, and that was originally, so it stands for My Therapeutic Effects Potential Index. I might be giving away just how nerdy me and my husband are. And it was a beloved name by scientists and researchers and nurses and doctors. They thought that was great. Then everyone else said, huh? What? And so we said, okay, we need to come up with something a little bit more digestible. And so that's why we do business as Discover Your Color, at DYC, or Discover Your Color, which seems to be a lot more digestible and understandable by the general
rolls
population.
off your tongue a little bit easier, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But we have kept MyTEPI because it does still ring true of what we were trying to do, which is personalize this medicine and get it to the right people. That's the goal.
Yes. Honey, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. I so appreciate your knowledge and your bravery in this industry. This is huge. And I hope you'll come back and give us more information and talk to us and tell us all the new stuff that you've been finding out. I'm sure this is going to go, if not nationwide, worldwide. It should. It should, shouldn't it? Wouldn't it be the simple solution to go worldwide with this?
We're talking.
Girl.
That's exactly what we're trying.
All
we're
right.
going to take, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you again, darling. Won't you come back anytime you want to?
Oh, you've been a delight. It's been so wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much.
All right, honey. This will come out pretty soon. I'll send you a link and la. You know all that stuff.
I do.
Okay,
and we'll share it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, take care, honey.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
You've been listening to another Cannabis Truth podcast with 21st century cannabis shaman Honey Smith Walls. It is important to use verifiably safe products and look out for yourself while we're in this wild, wild west of cannabis right now. Ask for help. It can get complicated. If you need serious medical attention, please consult one of the specialists at cannabisclinicians.org. They will get you to the right person and therapy for your issues. Tune in here for weekly foundational knowledge and learn to determine the best choices and cannabis strategies for your issues. But please be advised that shamans are not doctors or scientists. You'll find those at cannabisclinicians.org. Unless otherwise proven by a reputable third-party lab test, please regard all street weed as contaminated. It may do grave harm to a patient with a delicate immune system who already has inflammatory issues like arthritis, IBS, fibromyalgia, or worse. Thank you for your time today.